Let me see here. Oh, yeah. Well, the reaction, I think we've all had a little taste of this reaction around the world from world leaders to the toilet rats announcement. Was it only 2 days ago? How much has the stock market lost ever since this filthy pig decided, I have the power, I can do any fucking thing I want to do, and did it? Well, the tariffs that he has imposed on other countries, whether they're little island nations full of nothing but penguins, it doesn't make any difference to this ignorant savage. But those tariffs range from 10% to 54%. And the toilet rat is just having such good fun, isn't he? I saw some video today of him on the golf course today because, you know, his buddies, the murderous dismemberers in the Saudi government, are all at one of his golf clubs, the Doral Golf Club in Florida. And this video had about 10, count them, 10 golf carts just zipping around, all full of Secret Service, all full of these Saudi monsters, all full of the monsters that operate in the Trump administration, the toilet rat administration. There they are, just this parade of little toy golf carts. Meanwhile, the rest of the world and the rest of this country, we're all trying to understand what this ignorant, savage bastard has done. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, if you put any stock in that whatsoever, has just gone off a cliff. I don't pay too much attention, except as a point of reference, because Trump does. If I see the stock market tanking, I figure that is a slap in the gonads to the toilet rat. But I also understand that I've read that 60% of Americans, one way or another, have some interest, financial interest in the stock market through their investment accounts, their IRAs, their Roth IRAs, their 401ks, you know, what have you. So every time, as we've witnessed over the past, it's only been a week. I think the stock market today, as I'm recording this, is down 4%. Which means about 1,600 points. When you combine that with the decline over the past 4 days, you know, the stock market has lost about 5,000 points. That translates as taking money out of the pockets of people who thought they had planned their retirement years or whatever, maybe paying for their kids' college, maybe taking one last trip before they reach a point where they can't travel anymore. And this filthy fucking Donald Trump has literally reached his tiny little white hands into these funds and decimated them. And to add insult to injury, he doesn't give a fuck. He couldn't care less. He's busy playing golf. Pretty soon we're going to be winning. You'll have more money than you know what to do with. The price of eggs is going to fall to 10 cents a dozen. Everything will be fine. And I would ask the same question that Rachel Maddow asked the other night. How are we doing with all this winning? Huh? Isn't this winning great? Yes, indeed it is. Ursula von der Leyen, who is the president of the European Commission, representing the European Union, 38, 40 states, whatever it is. She told reporters yesterday, quote, there seems to be no order in the disorder. She was referring to what Trump has done. She adds, no clear path through the complexity and chaos that is being created as all U.S. trading partners are hit. End quote. The French Prime Minister, François Bayrou, called the tariffs, quote, a catastrophe for the economic world. He added, quote, it is an immense difficulty for Europe. I believe that it is also a catastrophe for the United States and the American citizen, end quote. Yes. Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin, quote, the decision by the U.S. tonight to impose 20% tariffs on imports from across the European Union is deeply regrettable. I strongly believe that the tariffs benefit no one. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba described Trump's actions as, quote, extremely regrettable and against our wishes. Acting South Korean President Han Duck-soo said the tariffs had raised the specter of, quote, a global tariff war. And, of course, the spokesman for the Chinese government. And the Chinese government is just happy as a pig in shit to see all this happening. They are, they have the most intense economic system on earth. We're second. And the Chinese government they have so many people and they have access to so many markets in the rest of the world other than the United States that they don't give a fuck about what Trump does. They see him for what he is. A jackoff who somehow a certain percentage of the American public, 49.7% of the American public said, let's make this fucker president again. And the Chinese are going, yeah, do that, please. So a spokesperson for the Chinese government said this, quote, history shows that increasing tariffs cannot solve the United States' own problems. It harms U.S. interests and endangers global economic development as well as industrial and supply chain stability, end quote. Yeah, which is kind of a very neutral statement when you take a look at it as to what the Chinese government as a spokesperson is saying. I'm surprised he or she didn't add something to the effect of, however, we fucking stand up and cheer what your dumb goddamn toilet rat president is doing because it will destroy the United States. It will sever the alliances and the relationships that the United States has with the rest of the world. That really troubles us, by the way. It will make it easier for our Belt and Road process of entering into countries and rebuilding their infrastructure where they then become dependent upon us. We welcome what your fucked up president is doing, America. Now, of course, the spokesperson for the Chinese fascist government didn't say that. But if you listen closely, you can hear it being said. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said the tariffs were, quote, wrong and inevitably will weaken the West. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said, quote, unilaterally imposed and punitive tariffs are a concern and serve as a barrier to trade and shared prosperity, end quote. Yeah, well, Mr. President, why don't you recall your errant little white boy who escaped somehow from South Africa? You ought to send a rescue squad of South African military to come and grab this fucking jumping jack fascist and take him back to South Africa, please, and do with him there what you think would be appropriate. If you need some suggestions, just send me an email, Mr. President. Oh, where was I? Oh, yeah. Now, here in the good old U.S. of A., even some Republicans, i.e. some Christian fascists, have begun to show that they have concerns about the actions of the toilet rat in a Wednesday vote. Remember those 4 Republican senators who joined every Democrat to vote to cancel the so-called national emergency that the toilet rat declared in order to justify tariffs against Canada. Canada. I have listeners in Canada, as do most of the podcasters on the Progressive Voices Network. And all I can say to the people in Canada who listen to this podcast, some of whom support me by sponsoring, by contributing to keep me on the air, all I can say to my Canadian friends and neighbors, and I don't know what the fuck happened. I apologize. I can't apologize for the 77 million dumb bastards who voted for him. But I can offer up just kind of a spiritual apology. And that apology contains within it some real concern that Canadians may come to the decision or the conclusion, I should say, that Americans support this fucker. No, we don't. 77 million of us were sucked into his filthy goddamn lies. For whatever reason, I don't know. But it was enough to get them to vote for this pig. And that's why I keep saying, I hope the people who voted for him, and I hate to sound so schadenfreude, but I hope the people who voted for him suffer the most. I really do. Because you were warned. You were warned by everybody from little old podcasters like me all the way up to very important people like Barack Obama, like Joe Biden, economists, military leaders, Kamala Harris, generals, admirals, pundits, economists, and yet 77 million Americans stuck their heads deep up their own asses and waddled into a voting booth and voted for this guy. So I just hope that the people of Canada are forgiving. We will get out of this. It's going to take a while. I mean, the destruction that this rotten son of a bitch is doing to the United States, to the global economy, to public health, to public education, to the U.S. military, to every goddamn thing, to medical research, to everything, to women's rights, the destruction that this bastard is doing is regrettably going to take some time to repair. But I don't speak for anybody, my Canadian friends, except me. But I do know from taking a look at history that I have taken, American history, that somehow we managed to come back from situations that seem at the outset to be absolutely, totally fucking destructive, and that the United States is going to implode. It's going to set itself on fire. It's going to have people jumping out of 12-story buildings. It's going to have people blowing their brains out. No. There may be some of us who are that unnerved by this filthy Donald Trump, but we will recover. We will. At least historically, that's what we've done. We recover. Why we have to go through this, I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of a karmic slap in our fucking faces for what we did to the native population here. By we, I mean the Europeans who first came here. What we did to the native population, what we did to the Africans who were stolen and brought here to become slaves. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.